TurnFirst is a unique resource because it's probably the first site where you have physicians and patients working in conjunction with one another.
We started TurnFirst because so many young people who are diagnosed with MS really don't have a dedicated resource for their needs. And having been diagnosed myself in my mid-20s, I really understand the isolation that go along with a diagnosis like this.
We have 1,500 MS patients at the MS Center at Georgetown. And we see newly diagnosed patients just about every week. And for the newly diagnosed patient, time and explanation is a rare commodity. And we try to take as much time as we can, and we even take an hour to go over the diagnosis with a newly diagnosed patient. But frequently, that is not adequate. And those patients have to be directed to a resource where they can, even though we've discussed things, the same issues we've discussed are presented again in a manner that they can then work their way through in a slow and digestible manner.
TurnFirst has information for patients and their friends and family to help them educate themselves about what MS is and how they're going to move forward from the diagnosis to crafting a plan for themselves with their doctors or the medical team to move on and live their lives and deal with this disease.
There's no question that some patients do better with the diagnosis of MS than others, that some handle it better than others. But the bottom line is its first impressions. It's how it's presented to the patient at the beginning, which is so critical, because that sets the tone for the whole rest of the disease.
When you're diagnosed with MS, you're often so stunned by the news that you don't always even know what questions to ask. And in today's world, what patients do is they go home and they get on the internet and they will type into a search engine multiple sclerosis. And if you do that, you're going to end up with about 14 million hits. And what do you do with that? What happens after that? If this is a new word for you, if this is a new diagnosis and a new disease, there is no way you can process all of that information.
It's exactly the reason that TurnFirst was developed, was to take the patient who's newly diagnosed to an area that's safe, where they can get information that is medically vetted out, but that will have a patient perspective, and that they can feel comfortable that the information is accurate and balanced.
The doctors have been very involved with reviewing all of the content, helping us design the structure of the site to meet the needs for the MS patients that have been in their care. And many of them are using the site and actually restricting their patients to TurnFirst as a resource initially so that they're not overwhelmed.
Those patients who start out right will be off on the right foot and will save themselves enormous amounts of psychic energy.
We created TurnFirst.org as an online resource to help the newly diagnosed, to give them the resources and information they need to come to terms with their diagnosis, to pursue their dreams, and to embrace the hope that the battle with MS is one they can win.